a disclaimer, we were students at Ringling, but we do not in any way represent Ringling's views or opinions on, art school or anything for that matter. So I'm not trying to get sued. So just,
Not
getting the disclaimer out of it. Yeah, for real.
Okay.
All right. So, hello, future art students of America. We are here today.
This is a presidential address.
Give you some insight on why you should go to art school. Just kidding. So we're all Ringling graduates. We're done, thank God. So we're gonna look back on our time at Ringling and kind of give you guys some insight. Just based off, like, when I was in high school, I wish that somebody from any art school would have gotten on YouTube and just talked about their experience, but it was something that I felt like was hard to find at the time. So I just figured do a little community service and interview some Ringling students so we can get some insight out there for you guys. So I guess we can first introduce ourselves so people know who you guys are. So Daniela, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Bree can go after.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, my name is Daniela. I just currently graduated with Bethany, and I majored in computer animation. And I did my short thesis film by the book with Shreya Devarakonda. And yeah, now I'm just really love the aspects of character modeling, character technical directing. So I'm just exploring that at the moment. But yeah.
Okay, Bree.
Hi, my name is Briana Uchendu. I'm an illustration graduate. I graduated with Bethany this year. Don't know what else to say, really. Yeah, I've been an illustration major for the past 4 years. That's it. That's all I've done.
Wow.
So y'all already know me. I'm Bethany. No, I'm just kidding. But I also majored in illustration. Me and Bree were both in the Viz Dev concentration. So we're gonna talk to you guys from that perspective. Another thing that me and Bree both share is that we both initially applied to computer animation and got rejected. And that's how we ended up in illustration. So we'll talk about that a little later on in the video as well. But I'll just get right into the question because nobody really cares about who we are. So the first question that I put up was, what other colleges were you guys looking at when you were, applying, and what made you ultimately choose Ringling? So Daniela, you can go ahead and start us off.
Good question. Well, when I figured out I wanted to do computer animation, I did a lot of research, and I kind of landed on SVA and Ringling. And I decided just to apply to both and learn a lot about the programs, but then not visit until I was accepted. So then I went and I just fell in love with Ringling. I visited Ringling first, and I fell in love with, I mean, of course, Sarasota is beautiful. They like reel you in with that. And then just like being able to see the campus and the programs and how much the faculty really is involved with the students. I just decided I really loved just how like the feel of it and how immersed all the students seemed to be in the work. So I ended up really just falling in love with it just off of that visit, and decided, even though I didn't even visit SVA, I was like, I had like a moment where I'm like, I think I'm gonna go here, and I did end up going and visiting SVA, and they have a beautiful campus. But it could have also been it was just SVA was so close, and maybe I wanted to be able to be a little bit more independent. So that was a factor, and being able to move to Florida and knowing that I'm gonna be immersed with a bunch of people, art students and people who love art just as much as I do. I was like, I felt comfortable being able to make that move.
I actually did pre-college at SVA. That was a big one on my list as well.
Yeah.
Me and Daniela are both from New Jersey, so SVA is pretty much like a guaranteed school that you're going to be looking at. Doing pre-college there in the winter though really made me realize that I did not want to go to school there. Commuting from New Jersey to New York, taking the subway, walking in the cold, because SVA has a huge campus that's spread out all throughout the city. So you have to like take the train to get to different buildings and stuff like that. And I did the 2D animation pre-college program there. It was really cool. I had a lot of fun. It made me think that I still wanted to go towards animation. So then when I visited Ringling, I went my junior year. I think I drove down with my friends and we visited the campus. We also visited SCAD. And initially I'd fallen in love with SCAD's campus. I was like, oh, I want to go to SCAD. Like they have a soccer team. They have like this really cool downtown area. And I was just thinking more about the fun aspect of college rather than the practicality. My mom was with me on the trip. So when we got home, she was like, oh, so, which school did you like better, SCAD or Ringling? And I was like, oh, SCAD for sure. And she was like, I think you need to go to Ringling. And then I had to like take a step back and be like, man, she's right. Like, Ringling, we're going to talk about this later on, but the social life at Ringling isn't really there. Like you're pretty much there to focus and, get your work done and learn. And that didn't really appeal to me at the time. Like I was just like, I want to learn obviously, but I also want to have fun, have real college experience. But Ringling's campus is really beautiful, especially coming from New Jersey, especially like having gone through what I did at SBA in the winter, trudging through the snow, like coming to Ringling and seeing the campus. I was like, oh my God, it's beautiful here. Like, so that was another thing that really tied me in. What about you, Bree?
Well, for me, I'm from Texas and there aren't really any art schools here at all. I was actually the only other school I was thinking of before I even thought of Ringling was actually Art Institute of Houston, which if you know art institutes, you don't even need a portfolio to get in. Like there's really no alumni. It's like you're paying to go to art classes, I guess, but it's not really an art school. And then when I got to my senior year, I started thinking more about, I was kind of opened up into the world of animation. I watched this documentary on on John Lasseter and how he went to Cal Arts. And that's when I found out that computer animation was like a career choice. So that was about the time when I started looking for colleges and I added Cal Arts to my list. But Ringling, it was the only other one because at a school fair, they said that it was really career oriented, which I think, when you hear about Ringling, a lot of our alumni get jobs. Like we have a really high success rate, like of students getting internships and getting jobs. So that obviously was a plus because when you're an artist, you want to make money. And so going to a school that kind of guarantees you that, it doesn't really guarantee you it, but it prepares you for it more than other schools would. So that's my main reason for choosing Ringling.
I think a big tip for all of you who are thinking about going to art school is the art school doesn't require a portfolio. That's a red flag. And that was also true for SCAD. Like for illustration and computer animation, no portfolio was required. That's really weird. That's just like, okay, like we're going to take your money and try to teach you, but like,
no notable professors and everything. The professors.
Yeah, so that's definitely things to look out for.
Definitely like looking at the professors that they have on the faculty, seeing their past work, even reaching out to people, maybe alumni, or seeing how they really enjoyed their experience. Like this is an amazing way of trying to figure out where you're really gonna excel. So
I'll go ahead and move on to the second question. Did Ringling meet your guys' expectations?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, what kind of expectations do you have as an 18-year-old that literally knows nothing, right? Like your expectations aren't that broad, like they're not really that high. So yes, it met my 18-year-old expectations. Having gone to the school and maturing and growing up, obviously there were certain things that it did not meet that I was like, well, this school could hold itself to a higher standard in these areas. But overall, generally, Ringling is it says they're true to their word. Like career-oriented school, they're going to try to set you up with success. They're going to try to set you up with companies. They're going to try to connect you with people. That's something that Ringling does do, which I see Ringling has that other schools might not have. That kind of gives me an edge. Like if you look at artists who don't go to art school, you can get skill and you can practice and learn from taking classes, but the connections and the career readiness that this school gives us is definitely, it's something that I think gives me more of an advantage versus an artist who didn't go to a university like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like coming into it, I love the experience of the friends that I've created, the connections with alumni and the faculty have been amazing. Of course, like I feel like we did have like a really weird 4 years with the hurricanes, with the red tide, the pandemic. So I feel like socially and the university experience, I feel like, yeah, everyone has that kind of like expectation of stuff. And since it's such a small school, an art school, it didn't have that foundation that a lot of people expect when going into school, into like a college. So I definitely had that high expectation there that wasn't completely met, but I did love the output that I came out with being able to have all these skills and being able to have all this community inside of this community, this small community that's very open to talking to you and just wanting to see you succeed. So
yeah, I completely agree. One of the biggest blessings that going to art school, especially in art school like Ringling, is that like you're surrounded by people who are just as passionate, just as serious as you are about getting a career or just your art in general. So that was really cool coming from high school, like where there's people around you who like art like you do and are serious about it, but more often than not, like they're not, and you're kind of like the art kid at your school and like nobody else really understands you. So then to go from that and come to college and be surrounded by other art kids, like it's really refreshing and really great. But in the same breath, art kids aren't necessarily people who like to party or go out and drink and do all the college things that you expect to do and get excited to do when you leave home. Granted, we did have our fair share of fun, and we tried to create situations where we did get a little bit of that college experience, but it's not just going to be like put out on a platter for you. Like you're actually going to have to go and seek out those experiences if you come to a school like Ringling, which I think is good. Like the workload here can be pretty heavy, but I think it helps you find that balance. Like, okay, I'm here to be serious and be a professional, but at the same time, like I'm also still a kid and I want to have fun. So you have to find that balance. And I think Ringling is good for holding you more accountable to being responsible and learning that balance instead of, because when you go to a university and it's handed to you, just, like Greek life and parties and all that's just right in your face. Like more often than not, kids end up failing out or drinking too much and getting fat and just doing all these things that they shouldn't do, So Ringling definitely met my expectations when it came to professionalism and the quality of the education I got, the faculty members. It didn't meet my expectations when it came to like social life and like what the college experience is supposed to be like.
Yeah, I didn't mention the social life. You're right. The social life did not meet what you think of when you think of a college.
Okay. My next question was, overall, are you happy with having made the decision to attend art school?
Definitely. I can't see myself taking science courses and math and having to do anything but art, honestly. I really enjoyed coming here. I don't think I would have been as happy as I am with like, where I'm going to go in my career if I didn't go to art school. I just can't imagine myself doing anything else. But I do see, I have a few friends who have, gone to a bigger university where they have art courses and have other stuff. And it really depends on you. Some people really enjoy having that experience of having those two things, but you really have to, know what you want when you go to art school. And I think that's the great part of being here, because everyone here is very passionate. And at the end of the day, that's where you want to surround yourself with people who are just as passionate about you and will help you, grow. And, it just makes you a better, artist, but also a better, person, being able to open up because you're surrounded with such like positive vibes. So yeah, I really couldn't see myself going to any kind of university other than art school.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I feel like the experience you get here is unlike any other, and it kind of, you're so focused, everyone is so focused on the same thing, so you really can't get distracted, and you don't want to because it's your passion. Um, I can't say that I don't regret, spending all this money. I wish I could have thought about it more before committing, like maybe take a gap year and think about why I really want to be here, because a lot of people do drop out of this school. A lot of people aren't ready for that type of focus and that type of commitment. And it is a wise decision to maybe, like, I would have liked maybe to go to community college and get my recommended course or my required courses out of the way, and then come and focus here after having done things that 18 and 19-year-olds do. But I do think that it's definitely, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. You can obviously compare it and say that there's some things you regret, but in any path you choose, there's going to be regrets. And I don't think this one has that many. I think it has it has a lot of benefits, and I've had a lot of experiences that I don't think I would have ever had in other places. I'm glad I came to art school specifically.
Yeah. That's a good point about, going to community college and getting those elective classes out of the way, because I do know a few people who have done that, and they really enjoy being able to then come to Ringling and just focus on their thesis or just focus on whatever their major is, and not have to worry about, certain classes. Although they do have some really cool elective classes, it can be sometimes distracting or frustrating to have to leave your work to go to another 3-hour class that sometimes maybe you don't want to do at that moment. So yeah, that's a really great, if that works for someone, that's a really great way to come into the program.
Honestly, that's really, really, really great advice, especially if you're in a state like New Jersey, where if you had gotten good grades in high school and you made the honor roll, they pretty much offer community college to you for free if you have a certain GPA. So really take advantage of that, because I made the mistake of not, I thought that joining the military, and that was my gap year, was basically joining the military, going away to boot camp and training, and then going to art school. And my mom, I wanted to do active duty, which is also a really great option. If you serve 4 years in the military active duty, they will pay for your schooling. You will not owe anything, and that's the route I wanted to take. But my mom was worried that if I took that route, that I would end up becoming complacent and not go to school, which, that's a very valid fear to have. I don't know if that would have happened to me, because again, I am very passionate about art and what I do. But I have no regrets, because had I, gone away and served 4 years in the military, I would have never met these amazing people that I've met, so I'm glad that I did things the way I did. But like Bree said, I have a lot of loans now, so that is a regret there, that I have a lot of money that I got to pay back. The military, when you do the National Guard and go to school, they only pay a portion of it if you go to a private school, which Ringling is. It's very expensive to go to Ringling. So
Yeah.
you have to try and do what you can to really get that cost down, because it's not something that just anybody can afford. So community college, getting those classes out the way so you're only paying for the classes you need, is definitely something that you guys should all look into.
Yeah, there's also a lot of students who, while they're in school, they're me being one of them, I know Beth also relates to this. It's it was really hard to focus on work sometimes because of the crippling amounts of debt that you don't know if you're going to be able to pay back. This is specifically for students who could take alternative routes but decide to go straight to a university. Also, there's a lot of students who come in and they're still in the high school state of mind, and it really stresses them out because they take the way Ringling specifically, there's a lot of critique and there's a lot of pressure on grades, whereas it's an art school, so it's not so much about the grades, more so about the progress and the work. But it gets to a lot of the students because they look at the numbers and they equate it to how it was in high school, whereas if you get 90, you did, if you get an A, you did a good job. But here, depending on the professor you get, could mean whether you're going to get an A or not. Because some professors just don't give A's, it's just their policy. And then there's some professors who are they give A's freely, and it's that's their personal preference. So a lot of students will kind of get really psyched out by that because they're so close to high school. That high school way of thinking is still kind of affecting them, I guess. And if you go to community college, you know, you get those things out of the way, maybe you mature a bit and you find out, you realize the grades don't matter that much, and then you go to Ringling.
Even me having taken a gap year, grades were a serious issue for me. Like, if you're gonna take a gap year, which I'm a big supporter of the gap year, but it needs to be a productive gap year. You know, I spent that whole year away at military training. I didn't pick up a pencil. I hardly ever drew. I think I drew maybe 2 to 3 times within that whole year. That was a big mistake. I lost a lot of my chops. So when I got to art school, I was struggling. I was drowning freshman year. Really, like, my grades weren't looking that great. Like, I wasn't failing or anything, but my ego was taking a huge hit because I was a good student in high school. I used to get really good grades. So, and the grades were affecting, you know, my mental state, which was then, you know, showing in my work. So you have to really like kind of push the grades to the side and be like, I'm at art school. I'm here to get better, you know, and I'm a freshman. I can only get better from here, and really understanding like, hey, the grade doesn't matter. I'm here to just be the best artist I can be. And I think that that's something that's not stressed enough at our school. It becomes very competitive and very much about the grade. And I think that that's where Ringling kind of messes up a little bit.
Yeah, they don't tell us at all. Like, they know that that's not the right way to teach, the right way to have the students be thinking, but they don't stress it to the students that they shouldn't be thinking it that way, you know?
Yeah, like that lesson didn't click for me until like end of junior year coming into senior year, which, you know, I could have probably progressed a lot more had I pushed the grades out of my head and not worried about it as much as I did. So, okay, what does it take to get into a school like Ringling?
I mean, at first I thought when you don't know anything, you think it takes everything. You think, man, I'm never gonna get in. Then you get there and you realize, I mean, this is just for the illustration program. The computer animation program definitely is more.
It's tough.
It's more, it's like, yeah, it's definitely more challenging to get in and more prestigious. But I think there's a certain formula. I think for CA students, and Daniela could speak on this better, they might, when your portfolio, you need to know how to draw well. They don't want to have to teach you how to draw because you're going to be doing stuff on top of drawing. Whereas an illustration student, you could draw well, but you don't have to be like competent.
Even if, yeah,
competent.
if your foundation isn't great, that's fine.
They'll build you up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's more for illustration. It's way easier, I think, to get in, but not easy to stay in.
For sure. I think there was a lot of pressure I was feeling too, like getting my portfolio ready senior year of high school so that it would get accepted into Ringling. But really all you need to do is, you know, come with 10 to 15 good pieces of work like they ask, and that's it. Have decent grades. You don't even need a SAT score. It helps, I guess, for scholarships and stuff. But Ringling is really, it's just about the portfolio. So just have a good portfolio, have a good entrance essay, you know, make sure what you're saying is, you know, they can see that you're passionate about it, because they want to accept passionate students that are going to make it, like make the long, because they're trying to get students that are going to stay the 4 years, you know. So make sure that you can show them that you're passionate, that you care about what you do, you put love and effort into your work, and that's really all you need. For animation, it's a little bit different though, so maybe Daniela.
I think it's honestly the same, but I think they stress just foundation, being able to do, to see that you're progressing, seeing your.
We removed the 40. Oh, thanks, Zoom.
Awesome.
I didn't know there was a 40.
Sponsored by Zoom.
Go ahead, Daniela.
But yeah, all I can remember from you know, portfolio reviews and going to those was the infamous Cal Arts sketchbook, that it had to be perfect, you know, every page like a piece of masterpiece artwork. And that was really intimidating. I feel like I really kind of was scared to put anything out there because of that. And I have to say that that's the biggest mistake. I was kind of brainwashed to see a sketchbook as something that is not. You should be be okay. A sketchbook is like a diary. Just go for it, put whatever you want in there, learn. That's your outlet of having to learn, being able to express yourself. And I feel like having that not be perfect is better. It's better for you to grow as an artist. And I just think that the best thing is just figure drawing, being able to capture anatomy is as a great skill. Just going, I know it's been difficult now, but going out, maybe just watching movies, being able to sketch while seeing them eating at a cafe, or going out to the park and just drawing and sketching people. I think that's one of the bigger foundations of just knowing anatomy, being able to see that. And the animation part, they don't really want you to come in with any knowledge of animation. They kind of want you to start from scratch, which I think it's great to like maybe look at YouTube videos, but don't put yourself through, there's a computer animation program for a reason, because it's really challenging to be self-taught in that stuff. So, of course, immerse yourself in like the programs if, you have time, but really it's just about foundation and being able to get those skills, and just doing whatever you want on your sketchbook. Don't feel pressured to use that as something that it's not. So yeah, that would be the biggest thing.
Something that I realized with animation as well was, I think that they're looking for drawings that have more life in them, and
Definitely.
like show that there's some kind of thought about animation going on. Because I remember when I had my portfolio review as a junior in high school with Ringling, the admissions guy was like, "Are you sure you don't want to do illustration?" Because I had a lot of finished, like paintings and like really like illustrative work. So if you're looking to get into animation, lots of gesture drawing, just like showing motion and life within your drawings, and not so much finished pieces. But of course, have some finished pieces to show off your skill as well.
Yeah, I think they do. I'm not completely sure what it is, but they do have like on the website a bunch of ticks that they're looking for, or looking or watching out for in your portfolio, and just maybe having one. I think you have 20 to 25 pieces, or is it?
Yeah, I think they give you a lot that you can put in, but like just they always say like less is more. Like
Exactly,
make sure it's like quality work. Like you're better off having your 10 best pieces than putting in 20 pieces and 10 of them ain't so great,
Definitely.
So you just have to like look out for that.
I feel like in this generation too, like not that I was showing it to my artwork to everyone, but I did have my art class and being able to go in. And now I feel like high schoolers, maybe they're not going into art classes all that much, and maybe they have their work, but they're not really showing anyone. So I know it's really challenging to just be able to just get critique and show your work, because it's like a part of you, and you feel a little nervous, but just it's really good to just show it to another artist. And if they are an artist, they will give you good critique and not ham in on you, because they've been through it too. So they should be able to give you really nice, productive critique. And although it's like really hard, I think that's like the biggest thing you can do is just try and get some other eyes on your work and see what you can improve on, because it just really, it benefits you, because sometimes it's just hard when you're just staring at something for so long, or sketching, you kind of get discouraged. You're by yourself, especially now. So yeah, definitely just getting other people to look at your work, and that'll inspire you even more, being able to just have that community, even though it's difficult now. Just start building that, presence in the community.
Yeah. The CalArt sketchbook thing, that like mortified me as well. Like a sketchbook was so challenging to finish for me in high school, because I also thought it had to be perfect, and every page had to be beautifully drawn, and I ended up not applying to CalArt.
It discouraged me from applying there, because I would look at the YouTube videos of CalArt sketchbooks, and while they're flipping through, you see it's gorgeous, and my sketchbook didn't look like that. I had pages of writing, I had pages of just awful drawings that were when I was like passing out, or there's like stuff that is personal and doesn't look amazing like when you look through all of those. So but that's a sketchbook, that is what it should be, and that took me a long time to start doing. Now I even now don't really have a sketchbook, I just draw on my iPad, but I think it's really therapeutic and definitely something I'm going to get back into.
I have what was your experience in class here like in comparison to art class in high school? I'll go first, because my high school was a bit different than the regular high school. So I went to Passaic County Technical Institute in Wayne in New Jersey. So because it's a technical school, you get to major in whatever field you want. We had a lot of different options. So I was an advertising art major, and honestly, I attribute a lot of the professionalism that I have now as a freelancer to what I learned in high school, more so than what I learned in college. But not every school is like this, but I had a lot of like graphic design classes and how to work with a client. I was blessed with really, really great teachers in high school. So I got an idea of what a critique is like what it's like to be flamed in front of the whole class. And, so I went through stuff like that. But I would definitely say, my high school experience, my teachers were a lot nicer than they were when you get to college. In college, they don't care about your feelings as much. So maybe they're a little harsher on your work. But it is what it is. You came here to get better. So you just have to be able to take a critique. Sometimes it's constructive, sometimes it's not. So you have to learn how to, take in the constructive stuff and just like not let the stuff that's not constructive affect you.
Right. Actually, while I ponder this question, I have a question for you. For like the illustration majors, I know that in CA we don't really get a lot of advice on freelance and how to do that. Is that something that they really emphasize or help you with like freelancing and stuff in the illustration major? Because I don't think we really got a lot of help, and like a lot of people in CA go on to do freelance work, but I think we're just treading water with in there, because I don't really think we have any structure or help in that aspect.
I would say Ringling's definitely lacking in that department, just because they are so focused on getting you guys studio jobs. Like getting a studio job is like the idea of success here at Ringling. And it was my idea of success for a long time. And it changed, my last 2 years of schooling, where I'm like, okay, maybe I want to do the freelance thing. I would say that they just started kind of gearing us to like figure that out with the professional practices class. It was very helpful. A lot of it I knew already, just like I said, I learned in high school. But I think as the years go on, the professional practices class is going to change and evolve and get better. So I think that for the future kids coming in, you will have a better idea of how to freelance, how to move in that industry.
That's really good. Yeah, but going back to the high school question, I know that my high school was very academically inclined. It was very intense, but we did have a really great art program with some great art teachers, and I ended up my senior year ditching language and science and taking 3 art courses, because I just, at that point, I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted to take all the art courses and kind of focus on that. So I think we had some really great, we had AP courses in art, and if you're thinking about going to art school, I really recommend, if your high school has that, to try and get into that class. I think it's really great. I know that some courses some high schools you have to take certain classes before going into the AP art course, but it's definitely something that helped me figure out, like, definitely I'm going to do this. But yeah, comparing it to Ringling, I feel like it was a great base foundation point for me. We didn't do a lot of like figure drawing or any of that stuff, but it definitely helped me get into that community, being able to have other people that were also passionate about art, with a school surrounded by people who were definitely more into the, science, mathematical classes, having like those, going to that class and being able to be surrounded by people who also love art, also want to talk about art school and grow in that sense. It was definitely a great way to grow for me and be able to be more confident to apply. But it definitely is more intense in when you get to Ringling and having to go through these courses. It's definitely a little bit different, but it was a great place to start growing as an artist.
For my school, I went to a few different high schools, and some of them were funded better. So the art programs, they were nicer, and then others were not, obviously. And so there basically wasn't any art program, but during the year that I was doing my portfolio, the school I graduated from, my teacher kind of made it let us have free reign, or she didn't really know what she was doing, so I kind of had to make my portfolio on my own. I had no idea what to do, and it turns out a lot of the teachers of all the high schools I went to, none of them really knew what to say when I said I want to go to art school. I want to go to art school, you know, like none of them really knew what to say, because they were like, well, I don't know what you want to do, like this animation stuff, this illustration stuff, I don't know what that is. They were all mostly fine art based, and I was a fine artist mostly before, until like my senior year. And so it was really different. Actually, it was completely different. I think the only similarities might maybe be like the mixed media class we did. There's this one class we did in sophomore year as an illustration major called mixed media or multimedia studies or something. And that class felt a lot like high school, because we were doing different projects with different media, which is something that in high school you do. This is a colored pencil. This is how colored pencils are used. You know, this project we're going to be drawing with colored pencils. It's kind of like that. That was the only similar experience. Other than that, it was completely different. In fact, you shouldn't compare high school art to college art school or art classes to college art schools at all, because they're just completely different. You kind of have to do your own thing. You can't focus so much on what the teacher's going to tell you. You have to kind of, at least in the illustration department, you kind of have to drive your own car, and you have to say, oh, this project we're going to be doing like a crowd scene. What do you want to put in your portfolio? What do you think is going to serve you best? That's how it is in art school. Whereas in art class in high school, you kind of just do whatever. You could just miss whatever. What do I do? And she's like, oh, I don't know. We draw a dog. So it's like, it's different. At least that's my experience.
For sure. That's a really great insight. Like art class in high school is like playing in the little leagues, and then you get to college and you're in a whole nother league. Now you're playing with the big boys, so you have to learn to grow up pretty quick and just become more professional, more focused.
Oh yeah, I wanted to also say one thing that I noticed, that when you're doing art in high school, you're not pumping out hundreds and hundreds of drawings. You're doing one project, and if you decide to make thumbnails, if you decide to pump out a bunch of preliminary work, that's a you thing. But the teacher really only asks for a project done. And if you're in high school and you have other classes and you're like a kid and you're like dumb, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna do the bare minimum. But in college and at Ringling, you can't get by with you have to do hundreds of drawings. You think that you know how to draw. They're gonna make you draw until you borderline hate drawing, because that's how much they make you draw. Like they make you draw so many, and you have to be okay with it. You also have to be okay with throwing away your work and not caring. Oh, I just spent 6 hours on this. It's irrelevant still. Like, we're on to the next thing, Like in high school, everything is so precious, but when you go to college, you're just an artist. Like, okay, you just made this painting that took like 3 days. Okay, we're on to the next project, So I think it also, if you're coming from high school, you need to learn that your art is not that precious. You're going to have to make so many, you're going to have to redo so many things. The critiques are going to tear your stuff down, and you're going to have to build it back up again differently. And you're going to have to change the way you see and what you normally do. You're going to have to explore, because that's how intense it is. And it makes you a better artist. So
for sure. That's really, really, really great point. I don't even know how I didn't think about that, because it's something that really affected me. Like the borderline hating drawing, like it's real. You get burnt out because you're just pumping out all this work. Like, oh yeah, okay, so we have to do this illustration. Okay, well, come to me with 20 thumbnails for next class. And you're just like, what? Like, I already know what I want to do, and I have to sit here and come up with 20 different compositions for this thing that I want to do. Like, what? Like, who wants to do that? That's so boring. But like, you have to do it, and then through that you'll learn, like, oh wait, like maybe they're right, my first idea wasn't really that great, and my 17th one actually is really great. So like you have to do the drawing. You have to just make sure you really, really, really love art, because you're going to come here and they're going to ask you to do things you've never had to do, and it's not like fun and games anymore. It's not like like the joy that you feel as a kid drawing, like, oh, I'm going to draw cartoon characters today and it's going to be really fun. Like you get to art school and it's like, I have to do this assignment today. It's not because I want to, I have to. And like, you got to be okay with that. I have to, but I want to learn, so it's like, you have to find what the want there is. You just have to keep reminding yourself, I'm here because I want to get better. This is going to make me a better artist. It sucks right now, but in the end, I'm going to be grateful that I went and did all this work.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I don't think we need to really talk about the workload because we've kind of hit on that a few times already.
Well, if you want an idea of the workload, I took basically 6 classes, like 5 to 6 classes every semester. Every class is 3 hours long. 4 out of 5 or 6 of those classes are 2 times a week. And then each studio class, which is the 4 classes, require you to have 6+ hours of homework. So if you do the math,
you were spending all day doing work. And like, I had to, have a job for most of my college career. I had to work, and I was also in the military. I had to go once a month to drill and stuff like that. To tell you I was burnt out would be an understatement. I was basically functioning like a machine. Like, it was not okay. It was not healthy in any way. Like, if you can afford to not work, if you need to figure out a way to not be able to work, which is not possible for everybody. Obviously, I worked while I was here. It is doable. It's not fun though. You have to really, you got to really put your butt in gear if you're going to be working and coming to Ringling. Ideally, you wouldn't be working. You would be focused on your art, but obviously not everybody's that privileged. So if you have to work, you got to be serious. You got to be focused while you're here, because you will fail.
If you have to work, I would work first, then come here. If you don't have enough strength to do both, because I tell you, it's hard. It's not something everyone could do, because then your art's going to suffer, because you have to do work, and it's just like, it's too much at once. And the teachers don't want you to have a job either. The teachers are like, what do you have a job for? Like,
literally,
I don't know why
James
they say
Martin,
that, but
my sophomore year, I was taking visual development, which don't do that. Like, wait till you're a junior, unless the program changes. But James Martin was like, you need to go to figure drawing. You need to do more figure drawing. Like, he honestly, people have their opinions on this guy. He cares. He wants you to do well, and he'll push you hard. And he was pushing me hard. Sophomore year was a rough year for me, but he kept telling me, like, you need to go to figure drawing. You need to go to figure drawing. I'm like, dude, I have a job. Like, I can't go to figure drawing. I have to go to work after this. Like, and he was just like, why are you work? Like, I feel like a part of like me telling him that I worked like affected my grade, honestly. Like, he's like, well, clearly you're not that serious if you're working, but it's like, I'm poor. I have to work. Like, just, you don't want to work because it is really, really hard. And of course I would have loved to been able to go to figure drawing and feel like I was getting everything I could out of Ringling, but I had to sacrifice some things in order to work. And because of that, like, obviously I've progressed a lot, but I could have progressed even more so had I not been splitting up my time between working and drawing.
Going back to the gap year, I know there's a stigma about, like, where are you going to go right after high school? But really, if you have a plan and you are going to put in that effort for that gap year to take some community courses and have a part-time job and kind of get those things out of the way while still growing as an artist, coming here and not having that burden of the elective classes, being a part-time student and maybe having that time to maybe have a part-time job also will give you that time that you need to just grow as an artist while you're in art school, because that's like the most important thing when you're in art school, is to be able to use all of the tools that they're giving you to just keep going and growing. So if that's something that you're struggling with, or it's really something that is deterring you from going to art school, just figure out why you want to go to art school. And if it's powerful enough, you just trying to figure out that way to give you that time to grow while you're here, not just being here, but being present while you're here.
I think another thing that we should hit on, because I experienced this with a lot of my friends, I went to a school where there was quite a few people who were very passionate about art, and I was surrounded by some really talented kids, and some of them ended up not going to art school for fear of not being able to pay back their loans, or, like, Ringling's expensive, but almost all art schools are. And at the end of the day, like, you have to have belief in yourself. Like, just because you're poor doesn't mean you can't go to art school. Work really hard, get good grades, try to get scholarships. Even then, going to college is an investment in yourself. Like, these days you don't have to go to college to be successful, but I cannot say that I would be the artist that I am today without having come here. There's no way I would be where I'm at without having gone to art school. So if you're really serious about being an artist, then there shouldn't be a question. Like, you need to find a way to get yourself into a good school and get the education that you need, whether that's through online classes or through going to school. But like, you can't half commit. You're either all in or you're all out. Like, if you're going to be an artist, go for it. Like, don't let that doubt get in the way of doing what you need to do.
Definitely.
I have how do I choose the right major on here, just because, I thought animation was the route I wanted to go. And then halfway through being an illustration major freshman year, I realized I made I didn't even make the decision. I was glad the universe put me where it did. So I don't know. Bree, do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a complicated, gonna be a bit of a complicated answer, because it's not just about your major. Like, you can say that you're going to go into computer animation, but how do you know you want to be you want to do lighting? How do you know you want to do rigging? How do you know you want to do, textures or modeling? How do you know that's what you want to do? You don't even know that stuff exists until you start going into the major. So say you're not a super technical person and you liked illustrating all along, but you were good at animating and you were interested in animating, so you were an animation major. And now you're in animation, you have all this, they teach you everything. They don't just teach you the one thing that you like, they teach you all of it, which Daniela can attest to. And so I think it's like, same with illustration. Like, when you go into illustration, it's very different. You don't even know exactly all the jobs you can get with illustration. Do I want to be a visual development artist? Do I want to work in live action movies? Do I want to work as a costume designer? Do I want to work, like, you don't even know what you can do. So I think the best course of action is to, before you go to school, going back to the gap year thing, you really have to know who you are and what works for you. Sometimes you don't know that until you try things. And so that's just how life goes. You're going to come here and you might want to change your major, this and that, but you'll be able to find out which major you want to go with if you know what works for you. If you're saying, I really like comics and I want to be a comic artist, I want to go to school I'm going to be an illustration major, but I'm going to talk to my professors about me wanting to be a comic artist, and they're going to help me with that once you get into like your junior and senior year. Or if you say, like, I really like animation, but I want to do animation for music videos, I don't really want to work for a studio, then you would talk to the advisor and they would say, well, maybe you should be in motion design rather than computer animation, because our computer animation major is more studio oriented, whereas our motion design students work for independent companies. Or you don't even have to know, you could be interested in working with animation, but you don't want to animate. You could be an illustrator. You would pick the illustration major, because there's a lot of illustration students who do like modeling for like video game companies, or like similar to what motion design students do, but just like the designing aspect. It's like there's endless possibilities. So really, the more you know about yourself, the more you'll be able to guide that inner compass, because when you get here, you're going to be clouded by what everyone else wants to do. I know when I first got here, I thought, oh my gosh, like, I guess I have to get an internship at either Disney or this place if I want to even call myself an artist. Like, I thought there's things I had to do to be something. I don't know, a lot of people did. And then as you start getting older and you get into senior year, you're like, wow, I've wasted my time chasing something that I thought I wanted, and making my projects oriented towards what everybody else in the school was orienting their projects to. Like, everybody is doing viz dev stuff, so I guess I have to do viz dev stuff if I want to make good work. But really, if you want to do costume designs, you won't know that until you really look back at what you did when you were a kid, really, what you really liked doing personally. And because that's going to follow you, that's going to always follow you even after you graduate. Look at what you truly like to do and try to incorporate that into your projects and what major you want to go into. Then you'll be fine. It's a long answer, sorry.
No, it was a great answer.
Yeah, she nailed it. Honestly, I don't have anything to add to that.
I mean, you can talk about like animation, how there's all these different things you can do, and how that changes over time, what you want to do.
Yeah, definitely, with any like industry. I mean, when you go into it, you're like, you think, I didn't know how much work. I mean, you stay and you sit and you watch the credits roll, and it doesn't like sink in how many people and how many little niches in the pipeline there are that make it happen, and each one are like individually unique and have their own kind of they all contribute to making what you're watching. So it's really hard to even come up with something, a way to figure that out before you even dip your toe into seeing everything. And I do really enjoy that about the program. They do make you learn everything in the pipeline for CA, and being able to then balance that with work, working on your projects, and then also trying to grow in that specific aspect is difficult, but definitely possible. But yeah, I think it's really just trial and error, seeing what you like, definitely seeing what you were passionate and what even brought you into art in the first place can definitely help you kind of figure that out. But honestly, I wouldn't knock anything out until you try it, because I didn't even know that what I wanted to do until I did try it. And maybe even the first time I rigged something or created a character, I was struggled through it because it's your first time. But really trust the process and being able to come back to it. Don't really discount anything, because something that you might hate sophomore year, you just become natural at it at the end, and you really enjoy it. So you really don't know where you're going to end up. But yeah, just be open to everything.
Yeah, I think everyone here has like had a meltdown about like, am I going in the wrong direction? Have I been doing the wrong thing? You know, like if your mind changes halfway through and you decide that you don't want that anymore, like that's totally okay. Like there's no timeline, there's no real like ideal success. Success is whatever it is, what it means to you, you know? So, you know, I came to school thinking that I wanted to work at Disney and I was going to settle for nothing less. And at 18, 19 years old, you really don't know poop about anything. You don't know anything. So like you think you're grown and you have things figured out and you know what you're going for. And I had like tunnel vision, like this is what I'm gonna do, nothing else. And then I felt myself changing, like, wow, like I don't know if I still want this, but like how can I disappoint my younger self and not go for this? I have to keep going, I have to keep pushing. And like that's just completely the wrong mindset. Like if you feel yourself not enjoying that anymore, then you need to start exploring other things. Like Brie and like Daniela said, there's so many options out there. Like there's like endless opportunities for an artist. There's so many different things you can do. You have a skill that like not a lot of people do have. And when you're at art school, I think that gets clouded and you start feeling like, wow, like there's so many people who are better than me or who are just like me. Like what makes me special? But you're literally special just for being you. Nobody does art the way that you do. And there is something out there for you. Just keeping that in mind and just really just focusing on getting better, and the opportunities will come. Like there's no need to put pressure on yourself on choosing the right major, choosing the right career. Like things are just going to fall in place as you continue to have growth.
And also, I know that just to add on to that, being able to really immerse, I know that sometimes the school is very segregated, and you don't really, because you have so much work, you don't really talk to a lot of other majors unless you're lucky enough to be close to them, like roommates and stuff freshman year. But being able to, you know, go out of your way and talk to other majors and seeing what they're doing, because you don't know if that's something that you're interested in as well. And just taking advantage of having so many other people who, you know, after a while know what they're talking about in the industry already, because they just have such a great education there. And reaching out and being able to do that really will also help you kind of figure out in your own spot. Maybe you do want to do computer animation, but you want to include aspects of 2D or something that an illustration major might be able to enlighten you on, and is like really great, and something that you should definitely be open to when you go into art school, no matter what school you go to.
Yeah,
For
totally.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my last question was pros and cons, like overall pros and cons of Ringling. I don't know if we should even get into it. Like I feel like we kind of have with all the other ones. I think that you hit on one con there that's actually pretty important, was that there's a lack of collaboration at the school between the majors. So what ends up happening is like you will really only know the illustration kids if you're an illustration, and you'll really only know the animation kids if you're an animation, unless you get so lucky to have roomed with people who are in different majors than you. So like, that's how we know Daniela, because Daniela was somebody who lived across the hall from us freshman year, who ended up being my roommate throughout college. So, and then going to soccer, like joining clubs around campus, playing soccer, meeting other kids, going to parties, talking to other kids through that way. Like that's really the only way that you're going to meet kids from other like departments, is if you actually go out there and seek them out, because otherwise it's just not going to happen.
It's healthy for you and your social life, but also healthy for your artistic life, getting you to be more inspired, getting yourself out of that bubble of getting out of a critique and just feeling so negative about yourself, being able to go and express your love for art, and also have a bunch of other people being like, hey, same. That really, and in different aspects too. It's not like, oh, you all are like, oh, I love this Pixar movie. Yeah, me too. But other people are like, have you seen this French artist? Have you done this? It really opens you up to like places you never even thought that art would be like a part of. It just, I've learned so much just from the students at Ringling alone. So definitely just using that as an outlet too, of just getting yourself out there and being able to talk to other students is really important.
Mm-hmm. And as for pros and cons, there's honestly, that's a matter of perspective. What some people might say are pros are cons for others, and vice versa. And sometimes, you might not know what pros and cons are really presenting themselves to you until you get to the place and you've already committed. So then you have to turn the cons into pros. I think it's a matter of yourself, and just accept, then what I liked that Daniela said earlier is about trusting the process. Like, you're not going to be in control all the time. You're not always going to know where you're headed or what's going to happen to you. You're not always going to feel like you're good enough or that you're even worth anything, quite honestly, because that's how much it gets to you. But you have to realize that you are in control of what's going to happen to you, what you're going to make of yourself as an artist. Railing is just a tool. And a tool, obviously they say, an artist is only as good as their tools, but really a tool is only as good as artists too. You have to be, willing, you have to be open-minded, you have to be proactive whenever something, presents itself, because there's a lot of students come here, and there might be a lot that drop out, but a lot of them do make it to the end. And some of them might have used this school to its fullest potential, and others, they might have just completely, didn't take advantage of anything. And that's really up to you. It's because the ones who didn't take advantage of things probably were looking at the whole situation very negatively and didn't see the opportunities that presented themselves. Whereas the person who made something of themselves and got opportunities, they tried to see the potential even in a bad situation. Okay, maybe I'm in a class that I don't like, or maybe I'm in the wrong major. Like, oh no, I'm in a wrong major. I should be in a different major. I actually like this. Like, if you look at the situation as, oh, this program made me do this, this professor is making me do this, the expenses of the school, like all these cons that you would see a school has, if you look at them as if they're chaining you and they're locking you in, that's all you're going to become. You're going to be chained in. But if you try to find a way, you try to be proactive, and you just take control of your own destiny, then you will succeed. It's 100% guaranteed, no matter how many cons are presenting themselves to you. But that's what I think, at least.
It's really well put. This school, it'll put you through a lot. The workload is heavy. You're away from home. You're trying to find your artistic voice. It's going to put you through a lot. And yeah, like there's pros and there's cons, but at the end of the day, like if you make it through, you can't see it as anything but a pro, because you're going to have so much growth through everything, through the hard times, through the good times. Like, you're going to come out a better artist if you make it through, regardless of what even your mindset is. Maybe technically you come out better, but mentally there's some work that needs to be done. But either way, like, you come to a school like this, like and you make it through the 4 years and you graduate, you're going to be a better artist by far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With that being said, that was all the questions for you guys. So if you're a future art student and you're thinking about going to Ringling and you have questions, feel free to reach out to any of us. I'll put our Instagrams and our websites in the description box, so you guys can click on that and then just message us if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have anything else to add for these young these young kids trying to come up back in
or these people,
we're so
they
much
could be older. They could be older.
Or yeah,
You
or
never
these
know.
older people. We're still kids too, guys. We don't know anything about anything.
Yeah. I think I said everything. I think these are really good questions, and you're not gonna know everything before you go anywhere. So don't even try bothering. Just follow your gut. Go with the flow.
For real. Thank you guys so much for coming on this interview and giving your insights.
My pleasure.
You guys, these people watching this video, so blessed. You guys just got some really great insights from some really great artists. So take advantage. I hope you guys make it all the way through and listen to the whole video.
Yeah, me too.
And if you did, like and subscribe and click all the buttons, except for the dislike one. Don't click that one, because I'm going to have more videos coming out. Next week, I'm going to be interviewing Shreya, who also went to Ringling and is a Disney trainee right now, along with Kayleen, who is an SVA grad, who is also a Disney trainee. So tune in next week, guys.